All right. So, thanks everybody for joining in. This is the Bars Open Last Call. And tonight we have on Albert Castro again, part two. Part two. Yeah. So basically, again, just kind of going back and giving everybody a heads up on what this is. It's basically just a way to chat, to document, kind of go through when we have people that have had an amazing life and history and done a lot of really cool things. We want to make sure that we're able to go through and document those sorts of things. So this is just, it's a conversation piece that we want to have that, again, it just brings folks together, make you understand what people have done for this country and what people have, continued to, they dedicated their entire lives to. So again, this is Albert Castro. I'm lucky enough to know him, obviously, because it's my wife's father. So it's pretty cool. So quick recap from episode 1 that we did that I just want to go over real fast with you is when we talked last time, we kind of went through, growing up in Brownsville and growing up or meeting just your youth, basically, right? And we went through some of that and how you met your high school sweetheart, Iris, in high school, obviously. And how long? One question real quick that I don't think we covered last time is how long were you married to Iris?
How long were we married? 60 years.
60 years, yep. So that's a long time. Beth and I were talking about that. And
that's it. We
got married when I was 30, and I was like, I have to be 90. I have to still be alive to even make it that long.
Yeah, it was a wonderful marriage, too.
Yep,
man.
absolutely.
I had a great wife who backed whatever I wanted to do. She was there.
Absolutely. So that's an important piece of your entire life. I mean, it was your family and, just having that support structure there. So you were in the Marines, of course. You did a tour in Korea. You got out of the Marines. So we talked through that and go back and listen to that and watch that afterwards or watch it before this and, you can get an idea of that. You got out of the Marines, you moved to Corpus Christi, Texas, right?
Right.
And you became a longshoreman for a bit.
While I was doing college, during the summer, I would do that, yes.
Right. So you did that, went to college, worked as a longshoreman, and then you had, at that point, so you just were having Albert at that point?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so you had Albert only at that point, and then you moved down to Brownsville after that. No, where were you a police officer?
In Brownsville.
In Brownsville, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
All right, so that's where we're going to pick up today is kind of you getting into law enforcement, right? Because he was an educator for a while after he got out of college, right? Which is always fun. Yeah. Teaching the youth.
It wasn't my cup of tea, that's for sure.
Not when we get into this, you're going to notice like the trajectory took a hard right.
Yes,
right? It just went a different direction altogether. So, really, that's what we want to get into today is talking about kind of your, I guess, history of what made you decide to get into law enforcement and go that route. Like, why did you do that ultimately?
Well, I think I mentioned this before. I was 10 years old. I got into trouble with the police, and twice. Once it was a piece of cake because I had taken a football at a football game, and I had taken a football and ran with it.
Okay.
And the policemen were out looking for me. They found me and took the ball away from me and took me into the stadium and sat me on the 50-yard line, and that was it. When the game was over, everybody left, and I'm sitting there looking, well, I guess I can go home. So I did. The second time that I got picked up was we were stealing some oranges.
Okay.
And I was on the tree throwing the oranges down. And the guys on the ground were picking them up, putting them in sacks. It was real delicious navel oranges. Yeah. And the guy came out, and they all took off running, and he took off running after them, and I'm in a tree. Oh, boy. But the guy had left, so I get down. I picked up an orange for myself and took off. Well, to make a long story short, the patrol, he had called the police, and sure enough, they picked all of us up.
Gotcha.
And so they took us to the police station, and I'm sitting there, and I'm looking at the different police officers, and a couple of them look really sharp. I'm 10 years old, by the way. And I says, so they gave us a lecture.
Okay.
The sergeant
But
came
not
out.
stealing
Sergeant
and-
Esparza, I'll never forget. Sergeant Esparza came out. He gave us a chewing out and a lecture about going the wrong way in life and told us to go home. I says, do we get a ride home? She said, no, you all walk. So we had to go home. And by this time, it's almost 11 o'clock.
Oh, jeez.
So anyway, when I got home, I'm lying there in bed, and I'm thinking, when I grow up, 2 things I'm going to do in my life. 1, I'm going to be a police officer. And 2, I'm going to be a Marine.
Nice.
And sure enough, I accomplished both of them.
You absolutely did. Yeah. So that's pretty amazing kind of way to think about it. It's like you're 10 years old. You already had this mindset that you were going to do that. So
not many people do
not
that.
at 10 years old.
Yeah. No.
or even not a lot of people get into doing what they actually wanted to do.
Yeah. I thought that's what I'm going to do.
Right.
And I did it.
Good. That's awesome. I mean, that's amazing. So you were an officer down in Brownsville. When did you become a police officer? Do you
in 1963.
Okay.
Late summer. I went to the academy in August.
Where'd you go to the academy? Was it in Brownsville?
Texas A&M had an extension down there.
Okay.
And it was a police academy. They have a law enforcement division that Texas A&M does.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And that's for those who were majoring in
Law, or
criminal justice.
Okay, yeah.
Well, anyway, the academy was 12 weeks. Very good. You ran a lot. read a lot of the law, state law. And when I graduated in September, I was a full-fledged cop.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That was the start of it all.
Yeah. And being the rookie, they put me, in Market Square, where all the bars are located.
Oh, really?
There's one bar after another. And there's always fights and drunks, and so I was right in the middle of it.
It's a bar, yeah.
It was interesting, right? Yeah, it was fun. To me, it was fun.
Right. Absolutely.
Everybody was going, what a night it's been, blah, 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 blah.
And you're
so,
just jazzed about having fun. Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. So you were an officer for 9 years, you said, right?
Yes.
So 9 years, you were a patrolman. So you have a funny story about like your partner, Gabe, you mentioned before.
Oh, yeah.
So.
We were walking the beat, and of course, my beat was right next to Gabe Vega.
Okay.
Another rookie like me. We
Okay.
were in the academy together. And must have been about 1 o'clock in the morning, we hear this glass breaking loud. At night, you can hear things from far away. So,
Right.
so I said, oh, that sounds like So I started working my way to where I heard the noise, and sure enough, my friend, the other officer, Gabe, was coming the other way, and they saw the guy reaching in. He had broken the window of a liquor store and grabbed 2 bottles. And Gabe was closest to him than me, and he took off running, and we're after him. And Gabe kept yelling, "Police officer, stop! Police officer, stop!" And the guy went. So he throws his flashlight at the guy, and because he was close enough to hit him, and it just bounced off his back. The guy didn't stop, kept going. Then he throws his handcuffs at the guy. And,
What's he gonna?
and by this time, I'm laughing, right? Then he took his cap off and threw it at the guy. I said, "Oh, that did it right there." I had to stop. I was laughing so hard. And then finally, he caught the guy. But, I mean, he looked around for me, and I was always still sitting
cracking up,
laughing. I said, "God, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen." And that's one of the highlights of a rookie.
Being a rookie patrolman,
yeah.
Right? That's awesome. So you were a motorcycle police officer for a while as well?
Yeah, actually, it was a very short time. I think it's 4 months. I was a traffic cop on a motorcycle.
Okay.
Until I had a little wipeout. And my wife says, "You get off of that bike. You tell Ruben," that was the lieutenant who had become my rabbi.
Okay. Explain to people what the rabbi
Rabbi
means
is a person in position that can do a lot of things for you.
Okay.
Right?
Put good words in for you, help you
help you.
Transferred or whatever.
That's right. Everybody had a rabbi. I had him when I was a police officer, and then I had a rabbi when I was a federal agent.
Okay.
But anyway, I had a wipeout. It started drizzling. There was a rule that when it started raining, you were supposed to go back to the station, park the motorcycle, and get in the car with another traffic cop. And as I made the turn, you know how that gravel gathers and that?
Yeah, around the corner.
And I was only doing about 15 miles an hour.
The bike slid out.
And slid out from under me, and I ended up with a bum knee and all that. And my wife says, "Nope, you don't."
Done.
I don't want to be a widow. You get off of that bike.
Right.
So she called Ruben.
Oh, right.
Just get him off.
That's the
that
pull
bike.
of the wife in this situation, right? Everybody knows. Yeah.
Yeah, she says, get him off the bike. He's going to kill himself. So, because I had a big chase also. I got chewed out.
Oh, really?
When I was on a motorbike, this guy was coming down the wrong way on a one-way street.
Okay.
And I tried to stop him, and he evaded the arrest. He took a right, and he took off. And I'm going to reach speeds of 60 miles an hour thereabouts. But finally, the guy blows a tire, and he had to go limp over and pulled over, and I arrested him for DUI. He was drunk. DWI.
Gotcha.
Well, we called it DWI back then. Well, by this time, two patrol cars had joined us, and they took the guy in, and Ruben called me the next day, and he points the finger right at my nose. He says, let this be the last time you do any chasing on a motorcycle.
Right.
Don't you ever. And I go, well, I was trying to. I know what you were trying to do, and that's good of you, but you're
on a bike. Yeah.
No, he says you were putting your life in danger.
That's what I mean. Yeah, you're on a bike. Yeah. Doesn't take much.
So I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right.
Shortly after that, I had to wipe out, and my wife told Ruben, get him out for that.
They
did.
Take too many risks at that point, so that's awesome. So you went from being a patrolman to a detective. Right? So about how long were you a patrolman before you became a detective?
Almost 3 years.
3 years. Okay.
No, 3 or 4 years. It's been so long. Yeah.
Right.
And I made detective. There was an opening. There was 2 openings actually for detective position. The guys had retired. Mm-hmm. I put in for it and took the test and passed it and became a detective. Ruben helped me.
Okay. Was it so?
My rabbi helped me.
Your rabbi helped you get in. Yeah.
There was 4 of us that took the test, and all 4 of us passed it, but he picked me.
Right. So there's only a couple spots. You pick your best.
Me and Andy Vega was the other officer that made it into detective.
That's where you got into, just making cases.
Yeah.
Where were you assigned? Like when you were a detective, what were you
citywide
assigned to? Okay,
we citywide, whatever the case might take. Yeah, and as a detective, I investigated a suicide, a homicide, and a robbery.
Okay.
That was the good cases, And
the bigger cases.
Yeah, and I worked them pretty good too, and ended up with good results too. So.
Yeah.
Except for the dead people.
I know. That's unfortunate. Yeah, that happens. Yeah. So then you became a narcotics detective. Yeah. Right?
It was a short division. There's only 3 or 4 of us, and that was it.
And that's where it kind of changed it changed the trajectory of kind of your career.
Yeah. And at that point is when I got hooked on being a narcotics guy.
Right.
I enjoyed tremendously.
Right. So there's a case that you mentioned to me earlier today about there was like a pot bus that you were sitting on for a few days.
Yes. Okay. This happened. It was in the summer, and a farmer was plowing his fields, and he noticed a big old bunch of branches covering something. He said that wasn't there.
Right.
Yesterday,
it's kind of different.
He's telling us.
So
he went to check it out, lifted up the van. Sure enough, there were 50 pounds of weed wrapped in. And so he called the police. So naturally, the narcotic and the other detectives.
Right. You all sat
there.
Started investigating it.
Yeah. And we sat there for 2 days. On the third day, 2 days, we ended up eating hamburgers and French fries cold. And luckily, it never rained. But there was always a threat of rain. And I said, it's going to be messy. But it never rained. And on the third day, one of the guys said, there's a car coming down the road. And I says, okay, that's strange. There's no traffic on that road. Anyway.
Okay. So it's out in the middle, literally out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. They were about 100 yards from the river.
Okay. So this is South Texas.
Yeah, this is south, on the south side of town, too.
Okay.
In fact, the road leading to that area was called the Southmost Road.
Okay.
Anyway, they stopped, and 3 guys got out. They looked around, kicked the can that was on the ground around, looked around, lit up a cigarette, and sat around for a while. Then they decided to get the weed, so they started to go in there taking the branches off. We had to wait till they actually got possession. Okay. In other words, possession. Up until that point,
To like put it in their
you
vehicle
can arrest
kind of
them,
thing.
but you can't prove it's theirs.
Okay.
But when they pick it up,
Then they're taking possession of it. Okay.
so when they started bringing the packages to the car, we came in. We all ran in across, hollering, police officer, blah, blah, blah. Unbeknown to us, those guys had a backup. A guy in another car about 50 yards, 60 yards away from us on the intersection stopped, and Roy Cepeda
He was just watching.
and me were the closest to him, and he fired at us. 3 shots. Boom, boom, boom. And I could hear the zzz. I said, holy shit. We hit the ground. Roy Cepeda says, he's shooting at us. No shit. You know? So the guy starts to take off. We run. Roy and I run and got in our car, and the chase was on.
Yeah.
And we chased him for about 30, 40 minutes to alleys and main streets and stuff. Almost had several wrecks. And finally, he got on his street that he lived on. And just as he was starting to drive into his driveway, we had already almost caught up with him. We blocked it.
Okay.
And knowing he had a gun, we jumped out as fast as we could. And I grabbed the guy from the neck and grabbed his hand. And I'm trying to pull him out. And he's fighting. He's hitting me with the other hand. Unbeknown to us, there were 5 guys barbecuing, waiting for the dope.
They were the
ones
people
that,
picking it up.
yeah, they
gonna-
were from Houston.
Okay.
And so they came out to help him, and they started beating us. And I mean to tell you, they broke my nose.
Right.
Blood just flew everywhere.
Everybody's getting smashed. Well, it's 7 against or 6 against 2.
Me and Roy.
Right.
And,
And
Roy,
so
was, Roy was a rookie.
Right.
So he
And
wasn't,
Roy was also not like didn't have a lot of law enforcement background.
No.
At all.
So
He was
anyway,
a radio announcer.
They were
you
beating
said,
the
right?
daylights out of us, and they broke my nose at that fight anyway. And there was another officer by the name of Beth Medrano who was just a block away, had answered a call of a fight between kids, and he had taken the bat out of one of them. The kids took off running, but he saw what was going on, and he recognized us. He recognized the police car,
Okay.
and he came over.
Are you in a marked car at this point?
No.
Or you just okay, you just can tell. Okay.
And he got there, and boy, bless his heart, he started banging heads with that baseball bat, knocking guys out and stuff. And if it hadn't been for us, I bet you 10-1, we would have ended up in the hospital.
Right.
But,
well, you already had a broken nose and everything else and beat up.
So,
Just 5 guys.
So, I mean,
6
blood
guys.
all over my shirt, all over my face. And so I told him, I said, well, take them all in. I'll go over there and do some paperwork. Let me go home and change. And so I get home. My wife had just gotten home from work. She was, at that time, working for the district attorney's office.
Okay.
And I walk in, and she goes, oh, my God, what happened? I said, we got into a little hassle with some dopers and whatnot. I came over to change clothes to take a shower. He says, you better go to the hospital. I said, nah, I don't need to go to the hospital.
I'm a boxer.
She goes, your nose is pointing south. So I look in the mirror, and sure enough, so I go, oh, shit. You know, it is bad. So I said, I grabbed right where I could feel it, and I go, and I heard it crack, and I yelled so loud, I think my neighbors heard. Talk about painful. Anyway, I did it, and I got tears coming out of my eyes. And so I took a shower, changed shirts, and all that. And I went back to the office to start doing it because it was a serious case. Assault on an officer.
Yeah.
Right, and resisting arrest, and I don't know, a bunch of charges.
Right.
But we couldn't charge the guy with an assault with intent to commit murder on the police officer.
Why is that?
Because we couldn't find the gun. And the
So he tossed it or some shit, right?
Yeah.
He must have tossed it or
the
something.
DA said, no, we can't charge him with that because you didn't find the gun. But anyway, when I got to the office that night, my eyes were starting to shut down. My nose was wide, and I could barely see. And I get my rabbi said, no, go home. We'll work it out, the report. You just go home and take some aspirin.
Yeah, like chill out, put some ice on your face, basically.
He
Right?
says, go home and have your wife take care of that. And I'll see you in 2 days. Stay home a couple of days.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it couldn't not because the next day I couldn't see it all.
I was gonna say, it's even worse the next
My wife
day.
was putting ice, and she took off from work to take care of me and all that. She had a wonderful woman.
Yep.
Wonderful woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, that was a good case.
Yeah. So after that kind of got you. You did. That was a narcotics case.
Yeah.
But when did you start going undercover on that? Like, because I know you started doing some undercover work.
Yeah. Okay.
At that point.
The agent in charge, who was Fred Turner, super nice guy, super nice.
Yeah.
Asked me if I would do a case for them undercover.
So who did he work for? Who?
He was a customs.
He was a federal agent.
Yeah, federal
Okay,
agent.
customs agent.
He was a federal agent in charge of customs agents in
Okay.
Brownsville. And they had 6 guys there, 6 agents, 6 or 7. I became real friends with one of them, Tom Gilbert, who was originally from Oklahoma. He and I just hit it off right off the bat. And so I did a couple of cases. Actually, the first one was a big one, having to do with 18-wheelers loaded with each trailer had 1 million. 2 and all and second all barbiturates.
So that's like
There's a downer.
a downer.
And
Okay.
heroin addicts use it when they can't get heroin. They'll pop in a couple of those pills. It just makes them like he's walking zombies, you know.
Okay.
Slur speech and the whole works. So I worked that case, and unbeknown to the customs agents, there were 2 other 18-wheelers involved. But I found that out working under and taking them. Got their confidence.
So how did you get involved? Like, how did you get introduced into being
He was hiring people
undercover?
He would give you. He would
Working
give you.
for that guy.
Yeah, back then it was a lot of money. He would give you $50 to offload the stuff.
Yeah.
While he put the pills were in small 12 by 8 boxes.
Okay. Because that's a shit ton of pills, I imagine.
Yeah. So, and he had 12 boxes, and he says it's 1 million of them, 1 million pills. And in Texas, they would sell anywhere from $2 to $3 a pill. Up north, Wisconsin, Ohio.
The farther you get away from the border, right?
It's $5 a pill. So he had more than $1 million worth.
Yeah, if you do the quick math on that, yeah.
So in that point of time, he introduced me to the other 2 18-wheelers who were already loaded and ready to go. They were just waiting on him. And so we loaded the pills, then loaded the produce that he had picked up, and watermelons and cabbage and lettuce and all that in boxes. And the guy says, all right, we'll take a break, guys. We're going to go get a bite to it before we hit the road and have a beer or 2. And you all can either come in and get a hamburger or do whatever you get. I'll see you and come back. And when I come back, I'll pay you.
Okay.
So when they left, I got on the phone right away. He says, Fred, this is Albert. He said, what's going on, Mule? Is it looking good? I said, it's already done. I said, but guess what? There's 2 other 18-wheelers.
Versus just the one that was initially suspected or whatnot.
He goes, 2 more? I said, yeah, I just met the drivers. He says, where are they? He says, well, they're parked over here at the terminal. So he says, well, great. So they had to wait until the 18-wheelers actually got on the highway to show intent.
Okay.
That they were going to.
They're going to try and go.
Yeah, the
transport.
charge will
Is
be
it transportation across border or state lines or something?
Well, it also shows intent of distribution.
Okay.
So they let them go down about 10, 15 miles outside of Brownsville, and bingo, they got
They
them.
bagged
So
them
that
there.
was a feather in my cap. And Fred says, at one point, he says, Albert, if you're going to be doing narcotics, you better become a Fed and get paid well for it.
Right.
So I says, well, sure. He says, but they're not hiring. There's a freeze. He says, I'll make arrangements. That's why I called him a rabbi. He made arrangements. There's no hiring. There was a freeze.
Right, back in 69, I think.
69,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Why was there a freeze, by the way? I don't think I know. It was just like the federal government was just frozen, like they didn't hire anybody.
They were not hiring anybody. Something to do with the budget, and I don't know what all. You know,
but something.
I wasn't involved in politics and
Nope,
knew
that's
anything
fair.
about politics. I do now, but
Right.
back then, it was not important to me. And I got home and told my wife, Fred wants me to take a test. And she worked at the DEA. She says, well, I know Mr. Turner.
Mm-hmm.
She says, he's a nice man. I said, yes, he is. He's super. He wants me to take a test and become a Fed. And she said, well, when do you take it? I says, Tuesday. That's 3 days.
Friday?
He says, what you should start reading. Get the encyclopedia, read.
Just anything you can get your hands on.
Yeah.
Right?
So sure enough, come Tuesday, I was the only guy in the room.
You're like, what the hell? Wait a minute.
Yeah, because nobody was being hired. So
Right. He specifically saw what you brought to the table, too.
Yeah. So I took the test, And I made a 78 or 79. Then they gave me 5 points because I was a veteran. So,
Okay.
So that put me in the
84-ish or something. Or,
So sure enough, there we go.
yeah.
Then I was told when to report to Washington, D.C.
So where'd you go? Quantico? No, that's Virginia.
No,
That's
at that time, Quantico was off limits to everybody. They were so
just CIA or whatever.
FBI. So anyway, Fort Belvoir.
Okay.
Which is outside Washington, D.C., about 40 miles southwest of Washington.
All right.
Fort Belvoir was an Army base, but they had a special area for
federal agent
federal
training
agents.
and
Now,
stuff like that.
I was there and went through the academy and all kinds of stuff that goes in the academy. Hard, very hard. A lot of running. You start off in the the morning, the guy comes in like a DI yelling at you, "Get out, you sleepy bulkheads," and blah, blah, calling us all kinds of names.
You're like, you're used to this. You're a Marine.
And I'm laughing now. It's a piece of cake, man. Then he goes, "Now we're going to put on your tennis shoes and shorts, and we're going to do a little run." Well, we started off 2 miles.
Okay.
A lot of guys
couldn't hack it.
Couldn't hack it, see? And so, but anyway, to make a long story, second week, they added another mile. Second week was 3 miles.
Right.
And finally, at the end, you were running 5 miles. But this is where a lot of them washed out. If they couldn't, they told you right at the beginning, hey, you fail this, you're out. You can only fail 2 tests.
Okay.
And we had a total of 7 tests while I was there. Different, having to do with the federal law and whatnot. But if you failed 2 tests, you were out. So we started out with 39, 48 people and ended up with 27.
Almost 50%-ish.
Yeah, they bugged out. Either couldn't run.
Washed out, yeah.
A lot of them couldn't run. They could run, but they could never.
Not fast enough or
no,
whatever.
No, they wouldn't even finish.
Oh, they just couldn't even do the 5 miles?
Yeah.
Jeez.
So they got washed out.
Yeah.
Others, and by the way, while we were at the academy, they're doing our background.
Okay.
And several of them, you woke up in the morning and the bunk was empty. They came in during the night and says, "You're out of here.
Yeah.
You're out of here." Something in the background, yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, okay.
It's interesting. So that's when you became an air marshal also. So Customs and air marshal at that point.
Exactly. And
that's a Fed. That was where your federal days started.
Yeah. And it's a matter of fact, when you graduated, one of the things they gave you was a little tie pin.
Okay.
It was a little pig with wings.
Oh, really?
Pig.
I know.
Sky marshal.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So anyway.
Connotation back then, yeah.
I guess about the last week of the academy, we got our orders, and I opened mine up. They were in manila folders, big old folders. I opened it up, and they go, "Oh shit!" It says reporting to Chicago, and it tells you the date.
And where's Iris in Albert at this point?
In Brownsville, right? And she's still working for the
South
DEA.
Texas, as far as you can get practically.
So, no, by this time she had transferred over to immigration at the bridge,
Okay.
International Bridge, yeah. And I called her and I said, "What's up?" She said, "How you doing? You almost home, baby?" I said, "Yeah, but guess what?" She said, "What?" "My station is going to be Chicago."
And
there was a silence for about 2 minutes. And I go, "Hello, you there?" And she go, "Yeah, okay. Home is where you make it, babe. We're ready to go."
She was probably still shocked, though. Like, we're moving to Chicago.
Yeah.
Of all the places. Like, I
a
mean,
guy
cold.
from a small town
Yeah.
going to a huge city.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the day before the graduation, Fred Turner, my rabbi, had just gotten promoted, and he was now a big shot.
Okay, with Customs, he was still in. Okay.
Yeah, he was in charge of personnel and some other thing. I forgot what it was. And I'm sitting in my bunk folding stuff to put in the suitcase, and he walked in. He says, "How you doing?" I said, "Hey, Mr. Turner." "Don't call me Mr. Call me Fred. You know me as Fred."
You guys have been buddies for a long time.
How you doing, Fred? He says, "I'm doing great. I hear you did real well." I said, "Well, it was fun."
Right.
Yeah. He goes, "So you're going to Chicago, huh?" I said, "Yeah, that's what the paper says." Then he goes, "Well, you're not." I says, I'm not.
Okay.
Okay, where am I going? You're going to Dallas.
Nice.
So here I go, call my wife. Guess what? What? We're not going to Chicago. Where are we going then? Dallas. Oh, well, it's just Texas.
Right. At least it's still in the state. It's only 4 hours away, or 7 hours away from.
That's how I reported to Dallas.
Okay.
And I was there 6 months.
Okay.
But while I was there, one day after I come back from one of those turnarounds.
So go over that real quick. So you're literally on the flight, just flying all over.
Make sure
flights all over the country.
While I was there were 3 hijackings. The hijackings were going big time at that time.
Was it? Okay.
Oh yeah.
So is that where like the air marshal kind of started?
Yes.
Was because of hijackings and stuff like that.
So there were 3 hijackings, and luckily on my flights it was cool, man. My flights were from Dallas to Miami, spend the night in Miami, to St. Paul, Minneapolis, spend the night there, and then back the same way.
All right.
And the other trip I had was from Dallas to New York. That was a bummer because you had 5.5, 6 hours of layover while you were waiting to come back.
And
to
just
Dallas.
sitting there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, by the way, going up and coming back, I would have cheesecake. I had so much cheesecake that I
can't stand cheesecake anymore.
I'm now starting to like it now, but back then I would turn my stomach. But anyway, and one day I'm writing on my report of the last flight I was in. You had to write everything. The government, everything's a report. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm writing my report, and I was signing it already and all that. And I see somebody standing here. I said, Fred, what are you doing in Dallas? Well, I'm here. I got transferred myself.
He transferred himself.
Yeah, I transferred myself to Dallas. I says, great. Are you going to be here, huh? I says, yeah. And he says, have you bought a house? I said, well, no, the wife was just here. We went looking around for about 5 hours. Finally found something decent.
Right.
She went back to work in Brownsville, and I said I'd start the paperwork. He says, don't. Why? He says, I'm going to transfer you to Eagle Pass. I said,
where the hell is Eagle Pass? I don't even know where Eagle Pass is.
Eagle Pass is south of Del Rio, about 40 miles.
South of okay.
Along the river.
Right along the river, yeah.
And he says, you're going to Eagle Pass.
All right.
I says, okay.
Okay.
So I called the wife. Guess what? We're not going to be living in Dallas. I says, where are we going now? I says, we're going to Eagle Pass. She goes, where the hell is Eagle Pass?
Right.
I said, well, it's on the border. It's on the border. Yeah. It's like Brownsville and Matamoros. The same thing here. Eagle
is it
Pass,
like in between Brownsville and Del Rio somewhere?
No.
Or is it
Eagle Pass is between Laredo and Del Rio.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So at that time it was a small community, and then Fred said, "You better go and see if you can find a house."
Right.
The houses are scarce down there. Sure enough, I found out why. It was a very small town. And when I got there, and I go, holy cow, I'm running around. And
there is nothing. It's just a tiny
They
town.
had one restaurant, and there was a McDonald's.
Of course it was, right? I mean,
that was it.
Everywhere, yeah. Even back then, yeah.
So I called the wife. I says, I hope you like Eagle Pass. It's a very small town, about half the size of Brownsville, maybe less.
Yeah.
And I said, but housing is scarce, but I found an apartment that's very cheap, and we can. She says, okay, well, if you're happy, he says, again, like I said before, home is where you make it.
Right.
So
absolutely,
I went back to Dallas in 2 weeks.
So what were you going to do down there? Huh? It was going to be customs.
I was going to be a customs patrol officer.
Okay.
Well, customs patrol officer.
So you're no longer going to be an air marshal. You would be.
Right.
Okay.
They did away with the customs patrol officer, by the way, shortly after.
All right.
A customs patrol officer's duty was to check merchandise coming into the.
Oh, like in trucks and stuff like that, kind of like the pill thing.
Yeah, exactly like the pill thing. You check for stuff, make sure there's no contraband and stuff. And anyway, that was the part of the duty.
Right.
And so I got back to Dallas, and about 4 or 5 days later, something like that, somewhere around there, Fred goes, did you go to Eagle Pass? He said, you didn't buy a house, did you?
Oh, shit.
And I said, I knew what he was going to say. No. Good. He says, I'm transferring your butt to San Antonio.
And you're like, okay. Are you sure?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and
right?
I said,
Because at that point, you're like,
see, and so I
you
call,
mean like what the
call the wife.
Call Irish.
And that became a game, right? And I called the wife. I said, well, I started laughing. I said, what's going on? She says, guess where we're going to go? Not Eagle Pass. Oh, my Lord, where?
Right.
I said, we're going to San Antonio. Yippee.
She was happy about that.
Oh, she loved San Antonio because we had been there. When I was a police officer, we came to the Hemisphere.
The World Trade.
The World Trade, yeah.
Yeah, World Trade Expo or whatnot.
Yeah. That was in 68.
Okay.
68, 67, 68. And it was a wonderful.
In San Antonio.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big little city, kind of.
Yeah.
Especially probably back then, right?
Yeah. So anyway.
It's not Chicago, but it's it's got some buildings, and some cool downtown, and
I started looking around for a place to live, and our secretary, Rose Perillo, wonderful lady, Rose Perillo.
Yeah.
She was actually from New York, and her husband was in the Air Force, and that's how they ended up in San Antonio. And she worked at the office for the agents.
Okay.
And she says, well, you don't want the Northeast. I says, I'm not familiar with anything. He says, I would suggest you go look at Leon Valley. Where is Leon Valley? He says, well, it's a suburb of San Antonio on the northwest side of town. So I have this realtor lady that's gotten homes for the 2 or 3 of the agents here.
Okay.
You might want to have her do that. And sure enough, she showed me about 4 or 5 houses, and then I saw the one I wanted right there, which is the one I've been living in now for more than 50 years.
Right.
But anyway, I saw it. I called the wife. She came up. She loved it. She asked for a transfer. By this time, she's working for Customs herself.
Oh, okay.
And they transferred her here, and her office was at Lackland Air Force Base.
Oh, so not too far away.
No.
Right.
And I started working. And since I was a Customs Patrol officer, I was assigned to the airport to check cargo that came in from Central and South America or any other place, actually. Yeah. But when there was no planes coming in, I would patrol in the lobby around, just looking.
Just watching people.
Yeah, watching people, basically. Yeah. And one day, it was a hot summer day. It was in August, late August to be exact. Walking around, and I decided to go up to the concourse where their boarding is done.
People are, they're going through the gates.
So I got there, and it was, like I said, a very hot day. And by this time, people were relaxed. They were wearing T-shirts and sports shirts and stuff. And I noticed this one guy that was wearing a coat.
In the summertime.
3/4 length, a wool coat, thick. And the guy was perspiring up a storm. And I said, that's strange.
Yeah.
So I kept looking at him, kept looking. He kept looking around and kept looking around. And then he looked at me. He caught
that you were looking at him.
Yeah, he caught me looking at him. And he backs up a little bit, 3 or 4 steps, takes a little bit, and he takes off towards the main lobby. And the chase is on. And I was pretty fast back then. I caught up with the guy, tackled him right as we got into the main lobby, in the center of the lobby. Yeah. And as he was running, I could see him pulling stuff and putting it in his mouth. And so when I tackled him, I turned him over and I grabbed his throat so he wouldn't swallow. And there was one packet still in his mouth. And he was going gagging, and I pulled it out. People thought I was killing the guy, and they were hitting me, trying to get me off of him. And luckily, there was a U.S. Marshal who was also
stationed there.
Yeah, stationed in there.
Okay.
Yelled out at people, "Leave him alone! He's a federal agent! Get away! Get away!" And so they got away from him. And Roger Brecky, who was the senior agent at the airport, for Customs, came up and I says, "Roger, I got this out of his mouth. He swallowed some other." Yeah. So he says, "All right, well, handcuff him and we'll take him." There's a hospital just east of the airport. It's a Baptist hospital, Southeast Baptist, I think is the name. Okay. Anyway, we took him to the emergency room. They gave him a shot. I think it was a shot,
to counteract the drugs in his stomach.
No, they gave him a shot, and about 2 or 3 minutes after they gave him the shot, he throws up, and out came 4 more packets. That saved his life because
Because it would have broken down and he would have overdosed, right?
he would be dead.
Yeah.
With less than an hour. So, but he ended up killing himself, though.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Right.
He came from a very wealthy family in Oklahoma.
Okay.
They owned a furniture store.
He was just transporting drugs.
Yeah. And he was an addict himself. So they put him in jail. They hired a very good lawyer. I forgot the guy's name, but he was a well-known lawyer out of Houston.
Yeah.
But the guy hung himself in the
Prison
cell.
or something.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So,
Yeah, but I mean,
so that particular case, by this time, Fred Turner is now in San Antonio.
okay.
So I think what Fred is doing is working his way back to Brownsville because he owns that beautiful home on the golf course.
Right.
And he's fixing to
He's
retire.
working his way back.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Fred's there. Fred congratulated me. It's a hell of a case. Good eye. Good eye. I
Right.
said, well, it's obvious the guy wearing a coat. I said,
It's 100. It's like, it'd be like now,
Yeah.
like wearing
He
a
says,
coat
yeah.
right now. Like
He
you don't do
says-
that.
I said, yeah, well, yeah, but not many guys would have paid attention to that point,
Right.
to that thing. So I said, yeah, so you're doing a great job. You know what? Go take a test to become a special agent.
All right.
So, okay. So a guy
So
by
a
the,
special agent still for customs at this
for
point.
customs, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, and another gentleman by the name became a very good friend. He and I started together. He was a ex-state trooper,
Okay.
DPS. He and I took the test for agents, and it was funny, you know. Now I'm laughing about that. We're in this room, and the secretary is sitting there doing paperwork, and gives us a test. He says, "Just take your time." He says, "It'll take you about an hour or hour and a half. It's 100 and some odd questions."
Oh, geez, yeah.
I says, "Okay, all right, thank you." And we started. Then she got a phone call and she left the room, but never came back. So Jack and I were exchanging for information. So needless to say,
You ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
we both passed, and so I became a
Special agent.
special agent. Now that's big in
Yeah.
customs, yeah.
Right.
But being a rookie special agent
You kind of start back at the bottom rung
at
again,
the bottom,
right?
and everybody had nice cars, and they.
Did you drive like a Pinto?
No, I had a little Volkswagen.
Okay.
Boogity, you know. And it was fun. It was fun. It was interesting.
That's awesome.
I was gung-ho to go all the way. I mean,
Right.
I was gung-ho. Everything I did from the time I left the PD to now, I was gung-ho.
Right.
And it was great, you know. And I'll never forget the very first case I was involved in with the agents. They were watching a guy bringing in heroin from Laredo and was going to deliver it. We had an agent or two from Laredo following the bad guy, contacted the agent in San Antonio, says, "We're here, the guy's here," and they give some instructions. And so everybody goes, "All right, let's get out in the store." And I'll never forget that I got in my little Volkswagen and we take off, boogity. Thing wouldn't go more than 60 miles an hour.
Well, it's a Volkswagen. It had like 1 horsepower.
Yeah. So
basically.
anyway, but here I am
20.
in San Antonio and I'm lost.
Oh, shit.
And I could hear the radio because we had radios, and I could hear where they were, but I didn't know where the hell that was. Like,
Right.
okay, he's going to Nogalitos. Where the hell is Nogalitos? Okay, he's going to get off in Tampico Street.
You're trying to find a map to like.
Yeah. Okay, he's going to cross Laredo. And I said, "Laredo, where's that at?" And he says, "Okay, he's headed towards Frio City Road." And I says, "Well, where in the world is Frio City?" And I'm trying, I'm losing. I can't see anybody.
And you're in a car that goes 60.
The next thing I hear was, "All right, hit it." And they busted.
Okay.
And I'm still
Trying to catch up.
And finally, a police car went by with his lights flashing. I said, "I'll follow that guy."
It's got to know something's going on.
Yeah, because of the area we were in. And sure enough, it led to
The bus.
the
It was
bus. And of course, they reported because the agents are in plain clothes. They,
Right.
they didn't know, so the police were called about this. And I got there, but they didn't know I got there late, right? So I'm walking around. "Oh, it's a good bus." This is, "Yeah, it's your first one, right?" I said, "Yeah, it's my
Damn
first."
right. I'll take a little bit of credit for this. I couldn't catch up, but I got there. No, that's awesome. So that's when. So how long were you? How long was it considered customs? Like before you got
Well,
into DEA? Like when the DEA was
Okay, I
created,
became customs in 71.
okay.
And July 1, I'll never forget this.
1971.
No,
Or
July 1, 1973.
okay, so you were there for 2 years.
Yeah, they
as customs
did
special
away
agent or an agent.
They did away with the narcotics guys in customs.
Ah,
In my office, there were 6 of us that were narcotics. The others were fraud and other.
the other things that were going on,
Yeah.
right?
So all 6 of us were. They came in and told us, you, and you guys go over to. You're now DEA.
You're like, what the hell is DEA?
Exactly what I said. What is DEA? Drug Enforcement Administration. I says, it was just created. I says, oh, President
cool.
Nixon.
Right.
President Nixon's the one that did it.
Interesting.
Because there had been some problems before in Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles where there were shootouts and it was cops against cops.
Because they didn't know.
They didn't know.
Yeah.
So now they're
Like somebody's playing a dealer and somebody's playing the buyer.
Yeah. So we reported over here on Fredericksburg Road.
Right.
That's where the office was. And we were introduced to the other guys. They were BNDD. They were no longer BNDD.
What's that mean?
Bureau of Dangerous Drugs and Narcotics.
Okay.
BNDD. And they introduced us to this, and you guys are no longer BNDD, and these are no longer customs. Now you're brothers.
Merged everybody together.
And you better get along well, because we hate each other.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Because they're always competing for cases and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But he says, now, I don't want any problems. The guy in charge, Keith Fager, was the guy in charge. He says, I'm not going to be here long, because I'm leaving next week. I'm being transferred to Dallas.
All right.
But your new boss is going to be Bill Klein, which was my boss in customs.
Oh, okay. So you were knew him, you worked with him.
Yeah. So you respect him like you respected me, and I don't want any problems between you guys at all.
You're on the same team.
You're on the same team, so you're going to have to work together, go out together.
Right.
And so that's how DEA.
It's awesome. That's interesting because it's when these federal branches get created, it's like, why? Like, how does that happen all of a sudden? And there's obviously the need for it, right?
It
breaks off from another area.
Yeah.
Customs can still continue focusing on what they need to and their mission, and then now you have
exactly.
So we're not going to get too far into the DEA because I want to save that for next time.
Okay.
Because we could talk probably about that, your DEA years, because that was a huge bulk of
my career.
Absolutely. And we'll get into that. But what I did want to ask is, what was your first case like? Being in the DEA, did it change, or was it very similar to still being in customs?
Well, yeah, because
same practices and stuff?
The thing about this, I had a knack for working undercover.
Right.
And
that was one of the things. He was an undercover agent.
Yeah. And so
the vast majority of your career.
I had this informant who said, there's this guy that's selling grams on the street there in the corner, and you can all watch him and see what he does. And sure enough, I went and parked at a sideways there, and I could see him. And sure enough, guys would come up and they would look around, they would do high fives, and then
that's how they're passing their dope off or whatever.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And most of them would take the dope and put it in their mouth.
And just because it's in a baggie or something like that.
Yeah, they were in little plastic bags.
Okay.
And this is over off close to the University of Lady of the Lake.
Okay.
It's on the west side.
Yeah.
All right. And this was a beer joint that I forgot the name of it, but anyway, he was standing in the corner there. The guys would pop it, then walk in to the bathroom and shoot up.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Okay. But he had a hell of a lot of clients, so he must have had a lot of
dope in his pocket.
They're called dime bags.
Okay.
Dime bags because you paid $10 for it.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's about half a gram.
Okay.
Right.
Was it like heroin back then?
Heroin.
Okay.
It's all heroin. So I decided to go up to the guy and said, I had seen the way he did it, so I did it myself.
High five him.
Hey, ¿qué pasó, brother? And he goes, hey, how many you want? He says, just one. Let me see how good it is. Oh, it's the best in town, blah, blah, blah. So I give him the $10. Bingo. He's dead now.
Yeah.
Got it. Walked back there. I called the office, called the agents. Here's what I just did, man. The guy says, you're crazy. You went in the west side? I said, yeah. By yourself? Yeah.
It's called work.
So he says, I just bought a baggie, a $10 baggie, a dime bag from this guy in the corner. Yeah, we've heard about that guy. You got it? Yes, I did. So says, we'll be right over. So they came over, about four of the guys. Jim Lynch, no, who was it? Jim Henderson, they called him Honda. Jim C., they called him Poco. They all had names.
Nicknames.
Yeah, Poco, because they asked Jim C., do you speak Spanish? And he goes, Poco, which means little.
Okay.
But that's all he knew.
That was the only word.
So they called him Poco. And Honda, they called Jim Henderson, they called him Honda because he was always going, vroom, vroom, let's go do something. So they called him Honda. And everybody had
a nickname.
But anyway.
What was your nickname?
They didn't give me a nickname.
No?
Right? No.
Interesting.
Well,
why did you not get it?
See, they kind of sidestepped me because I had a little bit of a temper at that time. I spoke my mind, in other words. Right. They were saying, no, that's not good. No, it's bullshit. Let's do it this way.
Right.
But anyway, so out there, and so they decided to see who was supplying the guy. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, he must have run out, and they gave him a little brown paper bag in there.
And it's a refill, basically, right?
And then the guy leaves, so they
followed that other dude.
And they busted him, and he had more heroin. And I went and busted the guy. The little bag had about, I don't know, $100 worth of dime bags.
Yeah.
And that was my first case undercover.
As an agent. Undercover as an agent. So that's awesome.
And from then on.
Oh, it went much bigger. We'll get into that next time.
Let me tell you, from then on, it went crazy. Guys were calling me from Laredo to go work a case
different
for them.
Cases all over Florida, and Phoenix.
Yeah.
You name it.
Yeah, I was there. They would call for me.
The original Donnie Brasco, basically, right? I mean, when you start thinking about it. So, thanks. I appreciate you spending some time today. So, we're going to wrap up tonight. We'll be back with another one here shortly. Thanks to all of our military first responders, everybody, all of you guys that make this happen. We appreciate spending some time with us. Albert, I really appreciate you spending some time and sharing some of your background, your history, and talking stories, because that's important, I think.
I've lived
and he's got some... Wait till you guys hear. Some of the stories are... He's an adrenaline junkie is what he really is. And I think that's really what... to this day, you kind of still are. The guy buys an AR-15 airsoft gun so he can torture his squirrels. It's in his blood. So thank you very much, dude. Appreciate it. You guys have a good night. I'll catch you a little bit later.